Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, backhanded me across the face. The sting was immediate, hot and sharp, echoing the fury in her eyes. How dare you be so ungrateful? She spat, her voice a low hiss. Fund Sarah's vacation or this marriage is over. Do as I say. I just looked at her, my cheek throbbing. Okay, I said, the word tasting like ash. The moment they left, I walked into our silent house and simply disappeared. The next day, when they returned, their faces went ghost white. The house was empty. Just a single note remained. The Sunday afternoon was lazy, stretching out like a well-fed cat. I was sprawled on our worn leather couch, feet up on the coffee table, flipping through a beaten-up thriller. It was more a way to kill time than anything else. Outside, the quiet hum of suburban Boston was just the occasional lawnmower or kids laughing. My watch read 3:15 p.m. Sarah, my wife of 5 years, would be home from yoga soon. I'd been looking forward to a quiet evening, maybe trying that new Thai place. Fate, of course, had other plans. The front door exploded open, nearly knocking me off the couch. In stormed Evelyn, a floral-clad hurricane. Her face was flushed, her steel-gray hair a mess, those piercing blue eyes blazing. We need to talk. Now. I put my book down. Hello to you too, Evelyn. What brings you by on this lovely afternoon? She didn't sit. She just hovered, casting a long shadow over me. Don't play dumb, she snapped. I just spoke with Sarah, and I'm appalled. I blinked. Sarah and I haven't argued recently, at least not that I knew of. What's going on? It's about the trip, she hissed. The luxury European vacation I've been planning for Sarah's birthday. The one you were supposed to pay for. My stomach dropped. Ah, that trip. The month-long European tour Evelyn had been hinting at for weeks. A price tag higher than 6 months of our mortgage. The one I'd silently prayed would never come up again. Evelyn, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Sarah and I already talked about this. We just can't afford it. Can't afford? She snapped, her voice rising. Don't give me that crap. Sarah told me. You've been saving. I know there's money. A wave of betrayal hit me. Yes, I'd been saving, but not for some luxury getaway. That money was for paying down our suffocating debt. Student loans? Maxed out credit cards? Last winter's emergency car repair. It wasn't optional. It was survival. That money is not for a vacation, I said, my voice tightening. We have priorities. Bills to pay, debts to clear. Evelyn scoffed. Bills? Debts? Is that all you care about? What about Sarah's happiness? What about giving her the life she deserves? I stood up, no longer willing to cower under her judgmental stare. Of course I care about Sarah's happiness, I said, my voice rising to match hers. But I also care about our future, our financial stability. I'm not going to jeopardize that for a trip we can't afford. Evelyn went quiet for a beat, then sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. I always knew you weren't good enough for my daughter. A real man would do anything to make his wife happy. The words hit harder than I expected. I'd always felt like an outsider in Evelyn's world. A world of country clubs, designer handbags, and summer estates. Sarah and I had met in college. She was the elegant city girl. I was the small-town scholarship kid from Maine. From the moment Evelyn first saw me, I could see the disappointment in her eyes. I wasn't the polished doctor or high-powered lawyer she'd imagined for her only daughter. That's not fair, I said, my voice tight with restraint. I love Sarah. Everything I do for us. For our future. Evelyn let out a harsh, biting laugh. Future? What future? At the rate you're going, Sarah will be old and gray before she ever sees the world. Is that what you want for her? I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside me. Evelyn, please, let's be reasonable. We can plan something more modest, something within our means. But she wasn't listening. Her face darkened, turning a deep red, a vein pulsing at her temple. How dare you? She hissed. How dare you be so ungrateful after everything I've done for you both? I felt my temper rise to meet hers. Ungrateful? Evelyn, we do appreciate what you've done, but that doesn't mean. I never finished the sentence. With shocking speed, her hand lashed out and struck my cheek. The slap cracked through the room like a gunshot, leaving a burning imprint that seemed to echo through my entire body. For a moment, we both stood frozen, stunned. I slowly raised a hand to my stinging cheek, staring at her in disbelief. In all the years of our strained relationship, she had never crossed that line until now. Evelyn, I said quietly, my voice barely audible. I think you should leave. But she wasn't finished. Her eyes, so like Sarah's yet filled with a cold fury, bored into mine. Listen to me very carefully, Alex, she said, her voice low and venomous. You will pay for this trip. You will give my daughter the vacation she deserves. Or, so help me, I'll make sure this marriage ends before you even know what happened. The threat settled heavily between us, thick and suffocating. Felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. You can't be serious, I said, barely able to get the words out. Her face was stone. Try me. You have no idea what I'm capable of when it comes to my daughter's happiness. And in that moment, staring into the eyes of a woman who had never truly accepted me, I believed her. Evelyn was absolutely willing to destroy everything over a luxury vacation. I stood there, heart pounding, my mind in a whirlwind. Part of me wanted to stand tall, to tell her exactly where she could shove her ultimatum. But another part, the part that loved Sarah more than life itself, hesitated. Could I really risk my marriage over this? Okay, I heard myself say, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Okay, Evelyn, you win. I'll pay for the trip. A triumphant smile bloomed on Evelyn's face, and I felt something inside me shrivel. I knew you'd come around, she said, her tone suddenly soft and pleased. Sarah will be so thrilled. As if on cue, I heard the sound of a key turning in the front door. Evelyn's expression instantly shifted. Any trace of our confrontation vanished like it had never happened. Sarah stepped in, her yoga mat under one arm, cheeks flushed from her workout. Mom, she said, surprised. What are you doing here? Evelyn rushed forward and wrapped her daughter in a warm embrace. Oh, darling, she beamed. I have the most wonderful news. Alex has agreed to pay for that European vacation we've been dreaming about. Isn't that marvelous? Sarah's eyes darted between the two of us, suspicion flickering across her face. Really? She asked, hesitating. Alex, are you sure? I know we've been trying to save. I forced a smile, my cheek still aching where Evelyn's hand had struck. It's fine, honey, I lied. You deserve it. Sarah lit up, her hesitation melting into excitement. She and her mother quickly launched into a flurry of conversation, chattering about destinations and itineraries. I stood quietly, the cold weight of resentment settling in my gut. This wasn't over, not even close. Evelyn may have won this round, but I wasn't about to let her win the war. As I watched them, heads bent together over a glossy travel brochure that Evelyn had magically pulled from her oversized purse, I made a silent vow. I would find a way out of this. I would reclaim control over my life, my marriage, my future. And when I did, Evelyn wouldn't know what hit her. The storm that had been gathering all afternoon was about to break. And none of us were ready for the deluge. The front door clicked shut behind them, their voices fading as they left, lost in giddy talk of their European adventure. I stood alone in the living room, the sting on my cheek a stark reminder of everything that had just happened. The house, our home for the last 5 years, suddenly felt claustrophobic, like a gilded cage. I drifted into the kitchen without thinking. The calendar on the fridge caught my eye, covered in Sarah's careful handwriting. Dinner with friends next Friday, my dentist appointment, her book club meeting. Ordinary details of a life we had built together, now overshadowed by Evelyn's looming ultimatum. Without thinking, I reached for the bottle of whiskey we kept tucked away in the top cabinet. A gift from a colleague, barely touched. I wasn't much of a drinker, but right now, I needed something to take the edge off. The liquid burned as it went down. It was a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my mind. But as the initial shock wore off, anger began to rise within me. Who did Evelyn think she was, barging into our home, issuing ultimatums? And Sarah? How could she have told her mother about our savings without even talking to me first? That betrayal stung almost as much as Evelyn's slap. I found myself pacing the length of our modest living room. From the cluttered bookshelf filled with Sarah's novels and my engineering textbooks, to the window that looked out over our tiny backyard. Each lap only intensified the resentment, the frustration, the creeping fear. What if I refused to go through with this? Evelyn's threat echoed in my mind. I will make sure this marriage is over before you can blink. Could she really do that? And worse, would Sarah let her? The rational part of my brain tried to speak up. Maybe I could talk to Sarah when she got home, explain our finances, help her understand why this extravagant trip just wasn't possible. But even as the thought formed, I knew it was naive. Sarah had always been close to her mother, always trying to please her. And Evelyn had a way of twisting the truth, of turning everything so that I was the villain. I drifted into our bedroom, my eyes landing on the framed photographs atop the dresser. Sarah and me on our wedding day, beaming with joy. A snapshot from our honeymoon in Cape Cod. Not the luxurious trip Evelyn had insisted on, but a week of genuine happiness. And then one from Sarah's college graduation, her proud parents on either side. Evelyn's smile in the photo didn't quite reach her eyes. Had it always been this way? Had I just refused to see it? I thought back to the early days. Evelyn had never held back her disapproval. My job wasn't impressive enough. My background not refined enough. My ambition lacking. I'd ignored her then, confident in Sarah's love. But now I wondered if Evelyn had been laying the groundwork all along, biding her time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to come between us. The more I considered it, the clearer it became. This vacation wasn't just about a trip. It was about power, about control. Evelyn's grip on Sarah, on our marriage, on our future. And slowly, bit by bit, I'd been letting it happen. I sank down onto the edge of the bed, burying my face in my hands. This couldn't continue. Something had to change. But what? What could I possibly do that wouldn't cost me Sarah? My gaze landed on the suitcase tucked away in the corner of the room. We'd used it last fall for a weekend trip to New Hampshire. An impromptu escape from work, family pressure, just the two of us in a cozy cabin. No obligations, no interference. I remembered how free I'd felt. And then, like a spark, a wild idea began to take shape. What if I just left, packed a bag and walked away from all of it? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Could I really do it? Walk away from everything I had worked for, everything Sarah and I had built together? But the more I let the idea take root, the more appealing it became. It wouldn't be forever, I told myself. Just long enough to clear my head, to figure out what I truly wanted. And maybe, just maybe, it would be the jolt Sarah needed to recognize how toxic her mother's influence had become. Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed the suitcase and began to pack. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I moved through the house like a man possessed, gathering only what I needed. My hands trembled, but my mind felt clearer than it had in months. As I packed, I tried to imagine how Sarah would react when she came home and found me gone. Would she be angry? Hurt? Relieved? I pushed the thoughts aside. I couldn't let guilt derail me now. This was about survival. My self-respect, my independence, maybe even my sanity. In the kitchen, I paused to scrawl a note on the back of a grocery receipt. I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I need to find my own path. Felt woefully inadequate. But how could I possibly explain this in a few lines? How could I make her see that it was about more than a vacation? Just then, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Sarah. She was home earlier than I expected. Panic shot through me. I wasn't ready to face her. Not while my resolve was still this raw. Not yet. On impulse, I grabbed my suitcase and slipped out the back door, the sky dimming into early evening. As I hurried down the path to the alley behind our house, I heard the front door open and Sarah's voice call out a cheerful hello. I froze, heart pounding, but I didn't turn back. Steeling myself, I reached the car parked along the street, tossed my suitcase into the trunk, and slid into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fit the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. I glanced up at our bedroom window. The light flicked on. Sarah settling in, unaware that her world was about to shift. For a moment I hesitated. I could still go back, say I'd stayed late at work, apologize for being off, sit down to dinner, ask about her day, pretend everything was fine. The pull of that old routine was almost overpowering. But then I remembered Evelyn's face, tight with scorn, burning with judgment. I remembered the years of quiet belittling, of never being good enough. And I knew if I went back now, nothing would ever change. I'd always be the disappointment, the man who didn't measure up, the husband who failed to give his wife the life her mother thought she deserved. With a deep breath, I put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. As I turned onto the main road, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. Our house, the home we had built together, now just another place I was leaving behind. I had no real plan, no destination in mind. All I knew was that I needed to put some distance between myself and the life I was leaving behind. As the familiar streets of our neighborhood gave way to the open highway, I felt a strange blend of fear and exhilaration. For the first time in years, my future was entirely mine to shape. Driving into the deepening night, my mind raced with questions. Was I doing the right thing? Would Sarah understand? Could our marriage survive this? I had no answers, only a fragile hope that this bold, painful step might somehow lead to something better for both of us. The lights of Boston faded in my rearview mirror, along with the heavy weight of expectations and obligations I'd been carrying for far too long. I was stepping away from the comfort of the familiar, into the uncertainty of a new path. It was terrifying, yes, but also unexpectedly freeing. As I merged onto the interstate, heading north with no clear endpoint in sight, I realized this wasn't just about running away. It was a statement, a reclamation of my identity, a declaration that I would no longer allow Evelyn or anyone else to dictate the terms of my life. The road stretched ahead, dark and filled with possibilities. I didn't know where it would take me, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally in control of my own destiny. The decision was made. There was no turning back. By the time the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, I pulled into the parking lot of a small roadside motel. I had driven through the night, my mind a storm of emotions and doubt. When I cut the engine, the sudden stillness was almost overwhelming. The weight of the previous day crashed down on me, and the enormity of what I had done hit with full force. I sat there for a moment, as though letting go would somehow make it all real. The motel in front of me was a far cry from the warm, familiar home I had left behind. A squat, weathered building with chipped paint and a flickering neon sign. But right now, it offered something I desperately needed: anonymity. Stiff from the drive, I stepped out of the car and felt the cold morning air. That's when I remembered the phone in my pocket. I hadn't checked it since I left, too afraid of what I might see. But now, in the quiet light of dawn, I couldn't avoid it any longer. With trembling hands, I powered it on. The screen lit up instantly, buzzing with a flood of missed calls, voicemails, and messages. Each notification felt like a knife to the heart. I opened the first text. "Alex, where are you? Please come home. We need to talk." It had been sent just an hour after I left. I could almost hear the worry in Sarah's voice, the rising panic as she realized I hadn't just stayed late at work. More messages followed, increasingly frantic. "Alex, I'm worried. Please call me. What's going on? Did something happen? I found your note. Please, let's talk about this." I closed my eyes and leaned against the car as a wave of guilt swept over me. I had known this would hurt Sarah, but seeing the proof of her distress made it hit harder than I had expected. For a fleeting moment, I considered calling her, telling her I'd made a mistake, that I was on my way back. But then I remembered why I left in the first place. The constant pressure, the persistent feeling of never being enough, and Evelyn's ultimatum. No, couldn't go back. Not yet. Not until I figured out what I truly wanted. With a heavy heart, I typed a quick message. "I'm safe. I just need some time to think. Please don't worry." It felt painfully insufficient, but it was all I could manage right then. As I headed toward the motel office, I scrolled through the rest of my notifications. There were multiple missed calls from Evelyn and even a few from Sarah's father, David. I could only imagine the version of events Evelyn was pushing, painting me as the man who had heartlessly walked out on her daughter. The motel room was exactly what I expected. Small, a bit musty, and frozen in the decor of the 1990s. But it was clean. More importantly, it offered something I hadn't had in years. Space to breathe, to think without judgment or pressure. I collapsed onto the bed, the events of the past day finally crashing down on me. Still, despite my exhaustion, sleep wouldn't come. My mind ran in circles, replaying the confrontation with Evelyn, Sarah's glowing face as she talked about our upcoming trip to Europe. The moment I decided to walk away, had I overreacted? Should I have stayed and fought for myself instead of running? Doubt crept in, quiet, persistent. But every time I thought about turning back, I remembered the years of quiet manipulation. The way Evelyn made me feel small. The slap. She didn't even hesitate to deliver it. I needed the space. I needed to rediscover who I was beyond being a husband, beyond being a son-in-law. I needed to reclaim my voice. As the morning stretched on, my phone continued buzzing with new messages. I ignored most of them until one caught my attention. A text from Mark, my best friend since college. "Hey man," Sarah called. "She's worried sick. What's going on?" I hesitated before responding. Mark knew the whole history. He'd witnessed the tension with Evelyn firsthand. If anyone could understand, it would be him. I wrote, "It's complicated. Can we talk?" His reply came almost instantly. "Of course. Want me to come to you?" I exhaled the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Just knowing someone was in my corner made everything feel a little less overwhelming. We made plans to meet at a diner not far from the motel. As I waited, I tried to gather my thoughts. How could I explain what happened without sounding unhinged? How could I make him see that this wasn't about some canceled vacation, but about years of bottled-up frustration and invisible wounds? When Mark walked through the door, the concern on his face was unmistakable. We'd known each other long enough that he could read me without a word. As soon as we sat down, he didn't waste time. "All right," he said. "Alex, what the hell is going on? Sarah's a mess. Evelyn's on the warpath, and you're holed up in some motel in the middle of nowhere. Talk to me." So I did. I told him everything. Evelyn's ultimatum, the slap, the years of feeling like I was never good enough for her perfect daughter. As I spoke, some of the tension I'd been carrying began to ease. It felt good to finally say it all out loud, to release the weight I'd been shouldering in silence for far too long. Mark listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with every word. When I finally finished, he let out a low whistle. "Damn, Alex. I knew things were tense with Evelyn, but I had no idea it was this bad. Still running away? Is that really the answer?" I shook my head, absent-mindedly stirring my untouched coffee. "I don't know, Mark. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was drowning, like I was losing who I was. I needed space. Time to think. Mark nodded slowly. I get it, I do. But Sarah, she doesn't deserve this, Alex. She's probably going out of her mind with worry. The guilt that had been gnawing at me all morning flared even stronger. I know, I said quietly. I hate that I'm hurting her. But I don't know how to fix this without going back to the way things were. And I can't do that, Mark. I just can't. We sat in silence, the weight of the situation settling between us like fog. Then Mark leaned forward, resolute. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're coming to stay with me for a few days. Get your head straight. Figure out what you really want. And then, when you're ready, you're going to talk to Sarah. Really talk to her. She deserves to know what's been going on inside your head. I nodded, a small flicker of hope sparking to life. For the first time since I left, I didn't feel completely adrift. Having a plan, no matter how loose, made me feel a little more grounded. As we stepped out of the diner, Mark gave my shoulder a firm clap. It's going to be okay, man. We'll figure it out. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But as I followed him back to his place, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had already changed. I had crossed a line, made a choice that couldn't be undone. What came next would determine everything. That night, settling into the spare room at Mark's, I felt a storm of emotions. Fear, uncertainty, and determination. I didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to how things were. No matter how painful, I had to stay true to myself. It was the only way forward. Thanks for listening. This story isn't over yet, and things are about to get even more intense. Stay tuned for the next part to see what happens next.